Social psychology is a blend of sociology and psychology. It is a study of group behavior. It is to study the persons or nature of human behavior and to understand the factors controlling it. According to Sprott, social psychology is concerned with the ways in which a person's conduct and disposition are influenced by the conduct and dispositions of other people. L.S. Bernard says that social psychology studies the behavior of the individual in psychosocial situation. A study of this chapter is likely to enable the reader to understand the psychological forces that motivate an individual to behave in a particular manner in his social environment. Man is a social animal. The society in which he lives influences him, but this must also be remembered that he also influences the society. In other words, other individuals living in the society are influenced by their behaviors as well. In a class, one student influences the others. The teacher influences the students and students influence the teacher. The leader influences the audience and the audience influences the leader. By the word influence is meant that due to a certain person some internal reaction takes place in another, and due to this internal reaction he shows some specific reaction towards the other. Showing mutual reactions in this way is called social interaction. Our behavior is a result of our reaction towards some stimuli. The behavior is a result of both internal and external stimuli. The feeling of thirst is an internal stimulus, and due to this stimulus we show a specific behavior. The human behavior may be described in three stages. Now let us study about non-social and social behavior. The early behavior of an infant may be called non-social because he is not conscious of society. Such behaviors of a child as throwing out a thing anywhere unmindful of the fact that it may injure someone, cutting his own palm with a blade, going to touch fire by hand, etc., are instances of his non-social behavior. When a baby smiles at its mother's show of affection and starts weeping after seeing her, or when it gestures to go into the arms of its mother, it shows a social behavior. Thus, the baby gradually becomes capable of showing different behaviors. In fact, most of the behaviors of a person are social. Non-social behaviors are quite few. Social interaction. Many human behaviors are based on social interaction. A person is able to show this kind of behavior only after coming into contact with other members of the society. In other words, one acquires behaviors based on social interaction through his own experiences. One develops a pattern of behavior as a part of his nature when he receives praise or condemnation, approval or disapproval from others in response to his behavior. The child shows that behavior towards its mother, which helps the fulfillment of its needs. For example, by smiling or weeping, etc., the child gets many of its needs fulfilled by its mother. The mother also shows her natural reaction towards the behavior of her child. Thus, we see that many behaviors of the mother and the child are based on social interaction. Similarly, in other fields of society too, behavior based on social interaction is to be found. For example, behavior between students and teachers, leaders and audience, workers and employers are examples of social interaction behaviors. Now let us study about the kinds of social interaction. Social interaction is possible between one individual and another, individual and group and group. Now let us study about the interaction between individual and individual. In this category, generally comes the social reaction between the individuals. The two individuals have some personal relationship. We find this example in our daily life. When two persons show behavior towards each other, then the example of social interaction between individual and individual comes before us. Let us study about the interaction between individual and group. When a group causes stimulus, then one shows reaction towards the group. An individual's development takes place in the group. That is, on the basis of group, his various qualities develop. The nature of man depends on the nature of his group. In the early years, an individual's relationship is limited to his family only. That is, his group remains the family. Gradually, with the increase in his age, the sphere of his group widens. Then he shows different types of reactions and it becomes difficult to identify as to whose influence is working on some of his behaviors. Let us study about the interaction between group and group. When a nation shows reaction towards another nation, or an institution or a village shows reaction towards another institution or village, then this kind of mutual reaction is known as interaction between two groups. In this kind of interaction, an individual identifies himself with the group, and in this condition, he is reminded of his group in his behavior. Let us study the forms of social interaction. There are many forms of social interaction like compromise, cooperation, conflict, communication, accommodation, competition, and social interaction and assimilation. Let us study about compromise first. Compromise is a kind of social interaction. When two individuals differ or disagree on any matter and there is a conflict, then they arrive at a compromise in order to avoid the conflict. For example, if a number of farmers irrigate their fields from a certain tube well, they will mutually agree about the timing of each farmer in order to get water. This will be a compromise. Someone may act as a mediator too. Let us study about cooperation. When some persons join together in order to make an effort to achieve an objective in a planned manner, then it is known as the cooperative form of social interaction. In a cooperative venture, all the persons involved work jointly and people forget their personal interest. Cooperation is absolutely necessary for our life. In the present age of interdependence, it is all the more necessary. The proverb that man is a social animal means that cooperation is the essence of life. Schools, family, caste, community, institutions and nations in this age often work on a cooperative basis. In the absence of cooperation, their very existence gets threatened and possibilities of disappearance of these bodies grow. Many of our tasks can never be completed without the necessary cooperation from others. This is such a glaring fact that it needs no example. Let us study about conflict. Conflict is a destructive form of social interaction. This is against the spirit of cooperation. In a conflict, various persons work against one another. A conflict may be between two individuals or two groups. In a conflict, one is against the success of others and works against it. In a conflict, an individual may have no regard for morality and he may try to harm others. Conflicts may be of varying types. For example, they may be between two castes, religions, political parties, groups, communities, and states. Let us study about communication. Due to scientific inventions, there are many means of communication interaction available to mankind. Radio and television are simply means of communication. Through these means, we are able to transmit our views to others. There is a special place for language, speech and signals in the context of communication. One transmits his views through language and signals. Birds and animals show their feelings or express their sentiments through various types of sounds. The dog barks in different ways on different occasions. It barks in different manner on seeing a dog, a man or an animal. His barking is different in anger, fear or joy. It means that he makes sounds according to his feelings. The same thing is found in men also. We use different types of language, speech, facial expressions or signals in order to express our feelings and views. Shaking hands with others, to wave handkerchief or hand, to move the head, make specific facial expression of views through means of communication. In these cases, some physical organs serve as means of communication. Let us study about accommodation. Tension between men or groups may be reduced through accommodation. When two conflicting parties agree to give up some of their interests and make effort for compromise, then they express their attitude of accommodation. Accommodation is very necessary in social life. In its absence, situations resulting in conflicts come up. The approval of the concerning parties is necessary in accommodation. Accommodation cannot be forced by anyone. Accommodations are not stable. In accommodation, one has to be tolerant. It is only on the basis of tolerance that a man will sacrifice some of his interests or be prepared to face some inconvenience and put up with the ideas of others or accommodate others. It is sometimes that victory over the enemy is achieved through tolerance. Assimilation also helps in accommodation. When a man assimilates traditions or cultures of societies differing from those of his own, he accommodates the traditions of these different cultures and societies. After this accommodation, the difference between the two traditions gradually disappears. Let us study about the competitions. When difference arises among some persons over the possession of something or in the fulfillment of any purpose, the feeling of rivalry or competition is born in them. Due to this feeling, the stronger person gets the thing or achieves the purpose. At the root of competition may be the desire for getting a material object like money or any other benefit, or its cause may be attaining honor and respect in the society. As a result of competitions, one puts in harder labor and thus greatly develops his faculties and various powers. It is the competitive spirit which makes students to labor hard during examination days. They want to excel others through their performances. Similarly, the spirit of competition inspires a wrestler to put in maximum physical labor in the arena and learn the tricks of the art of wrestling. However, the results of competition are not always good. Competition also gives rise to conflicts which harms the individual and society. Let us study about social integration and assimilation. Efforts are made to understand various viewpoints in social integration and assimilation. A decision is reached with the approval of all concerned. Therefore, nobody feels that something is being thrust upon them. Everyone voluntarily accepts the decisions because he considers it to be his own decision. Due to this feeling that decisions become a part of his behavior, views, ideals or culture and he assimilates it. Let us study about the mechanism of social interaction. Many important factors like direction or suggestion, sympathy, imitation, projection, identification, displacement, objectification, inhibition, facilitation and social conformity are involved in social interaction. We have already discussed suggestion, sympathy and imitation in our earlier chapters. So, shall discuss the remaining factors in this chapter. Let us study about the first aspect called projection. Projection is a mechanism of social interaction. In this form of mechanism, one projects his views before others. The unconscious mind is more active in the individual in this mechanism. So, through projection, an individual unknowingly gives expression to many of his dominant desires, defects and views. Psychologists have particularly taken the help of the technique projection for measuring personality. The main aim of this technique is to find out inner views and the thinking of an individual. We have only to understand projection technique in relation to social interaction. Both normal and abnormal behavior may be brought to light through this technique. In projection, one may project out his feelings on others too. For example, a person of corrupt nature finds everyone corrupt. In other words, he includes others too in his projection. Let us study about identification. In identification, a person feels oneness with others. He does not find any difference between himself and the person with whom he identifies himself. He only considers him as a part of his own self. When identification is established between the mother and the son, a friend and a friend, husband and wife, master and servant, leader and the pupil, then no difference is left between their interests. They are ready to stake their lives for one another. This is the form of identification mechanism of social interaction. As against this, some people, due to their inferior intelligence and materialistic thinking, identify themselves with things like watch, pen and necklace, coat, etc. so much that when any of these things lost or broken, they themselves become broken-hearted. This is a very low type of identification. This shows that The particular individual has confined himself only to those material things. Higher order of identification is very necessary for successful social life. Whatever great and noble deeds have been done in the world are the results of high order of identification. Next, let us study about displacement. Displacement is also a mechanism of social interaction. In this mechanism, a person directs his feelings and emotions towards those things which have no relationship with him. When a man returns home humiliated by someone, he pours down his anger on his wife or children. In a way, displacement may be considered useful to some extent because it provides an escape to tension and in the process one finds some relief. Secondly, after a short time, the person realizes this mistake and shows more consideration towards the one who had earlier become the target of his anger. We know that after punishing the child, his mother often shows more love to him. In the mechanism of displacement, the snubbed wife generally gets more affectionate treatment from her husband. Let us study about objectification as the next. Objectification is also a mechanism of social interaction. When a person gets his desire fulfilled through the action of another person, then the mechanism of obtaining satisfaction is called objectification. An example may be given to explain objectification. A man is a boxer and has a great love for this pugilistic art, but due to disability of one of his hands, he is unable to participate in a boxing competition. When this man witnesses a boxing feat, it is possible that he will derive the satisfaction of fulfilling his desire. Achieving this kind of satisfaction is called the mechanism of objectification. Let us study about social inhibition. Some people are either shy or afraid of doing a work before others. A musician sings beautifully when alone in his room, but he often fails to live up to his performance before an audience. The employee finds hurdles in his working if watched by others. This phenomenon is often witnessed. In such situations, one feels unable to do his work properly because in his mind he opposes the presence of the spectator. This is called social inhibition. This is also a form of social interaction. Let us study about social facilitation as the next one. Social facilitation is a kind of social interaction. In this form of mechanism, when an individual works with a group or in the presence of many others, then his working efficiency increases. When he works alone, then he finds it less interesting. For example, when a mason works along with other masons, his working efficiency records an increase. When he finds himself among others like him, he is inspired and his speed and efficiency increase. This tendency is visible in animals also. Let us study about the social conformity. An individual, while observing social conformity, shows his behavior according to the recognized values of the society. For socialization, it is very necessary to pay attention to social conformity. When a man shows similar behavior in a situation as is shown by others, then he gives expression to social conformity. Generally, all men try to show social conformity in their behavior. Those who do not show social conformity are condemned. Children and adolescents are always advised to behave according to social conformity. Now let us study about group dynamics. We come to know of different changes occurring in the group from time to time through group dynamics. It is necessary to understand group dynamics in order to have a clear grasp of social life. Under group dynamics, we study those groups which are kaleidoscopic in nature. The causes that lead to changes in the group are also studied under group dynamics. Some groups are more stable than others, and it is difficult to effect changes in them. But there are changes in the environment surrounding them. In some groups in our country, more changes are constantly taking place as compared to other groups. The groups plagued with conflicts are more prone to rapid changes. Whatever changes come about in the group are generally meant to exercise control over conflicts or to reduce the prevailing tension. The structure of group becomes unstable due to changes. Various subgroups are formed in the group. These subgroups try to achieve balance between them. There are some such members in the subgroups who behave often against the unanimously accepted rules. By removing these members, the relations between the subgroups improve. The entire life of the group is paralyzed when internal tension increases the group. Disintegration of joint family and cooperative societies and divorce between wife and husband, etc., are some of the instances of tension causing breakdown of group relations. For re-establishing group relations, strong faith has to be generated in individuals towards group ideals, values, and objectives. When an individual establishes identification between his personal interests and interests of the society, he gets prepared to make supreme sacrifice for the cause of the society. Changes in groups also become possible with changes in situations. In 1962, due to Chinese aggression, a unique wave of unity swept over the country. In this way, due to change of situation, all the people in states in the country had the feeling of national unity. But one must not forget that external power does not bring about permanent unity. Individuals form groups. Some of these individuals are more influential than others, and when they leave the group, there appears a great change in the nature of the group. Nature of group may also change with the changes in economic and social conditions. Any communist country may be cited as an example. In this manner, with the help of group dynamics, we may be able to understand the changes taking place in groups and their causes. In fact, in understanding any society, we shall have to study the group dynamics. To sum up, so far we have studied what social interaction is, what are the kinds of social interaction, what is the mechanism of social interaction, and also about group dynamics. Social interaction is one of the important topics of social psychology.